Peruvian judge bars ex-president Martín Vizcarra from leaving the country for 18 months. Chilean police repress protesters rallying for the release of political prisoners. And Italy extends a partial lockdown to curb a second wave of coronavirus infections. Hello and welcome to TeleSUR. I'm Carla Gonzalez and this is From the South. This Friday, a judge barred former Peruvian President Martín Vizcarra from leaving the country for 18 months, while prosecutors investigate the bribery allegations that Congress used to oust him, plunging the nation into a political crisis. Judge María de los Ángeles Álvarez agreed with prosecutors that Vizcarra could present a flight risk, given the seriousness of the accusations, though he will still be allowed to move freely within the country until the order expires. Prosecutors are investigating whether Vizcarra received over $630,000 while serving as governor of a small province in southern Peru in exchange for 2 construction projects. Vizcarra denied the charges Monday before Congress, but lawmakers used a provision within the law dating back to the 19th century that allows them to remove a president on the grounds of moral incapacity. The move has sparked widespread protests by Peruvians fed up of corruption among the country's political elite and calling for a constituent assembly. Chilean police have once again violently repressed indigenous, social and trade union movements rallying in the capital's Dignity Square in Santiago. They demanded the release of political prisoners and for the government to address their economic demands. Police sought to prevent health sector workers from rallying in the square on a second day of a 48-hour national strike. They protested the government's refusal to address demands, including the payment of overdue salaries and exceptional financial assistance. This in the face of the economic crisis sparked by the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, indigenous movements are commemorating 2 years since the assassination of Mapuche leader Camilo Catrillanca and demanding justice for his family and the community. Also, cyclists met in Dignity Square to demand respect for their movement and to support the call to release political prisoners detained in last year's widespread anti-government protests. Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro led the closure of the global meeting of the anti-imperialist working class this Friday and assured that it represents a grand alliance of progressive forces fighting for a fairer world.
After several days of meetings, exchanges and discussions, this platform launched into the world this great alliance of trade union forces, of progressive forces representing the working class, fighting for a different world, a world of equals, for a world without war, for a world where the wealth produced by the working class is issued for life, for welfare, for inclusion, for a new society.
The Venezuelan president said the platform emerged from the Sao Paulo Forum and the global meeting of the working class held in 2019.
We have contact with 61 countries. More than 200 leaders are currently participating in this video conference from 5 continents. More than 171 working-class trade unions organizations from around the world. More than 48 political parties and 87 progressive movements, all connected from today in a platform of the anti-imperialist working class.
And ahead of the parliamentary elections in Venezuela, President Maduro also praised the proposal of the opposition candidates to investigate government officials in case they win the majority at the National Assembly.
There, the opposition deputies who went to the debate wished that they would come to the National Assembly to question the ministers. And I tell you, the person that would be happiest if there were investigations, questioning of ministers and officials, is Nicolás Maduro. I agree that they should ask for explanations. And if that questioning and those investigations the National Assembly has to undertake a vote of no confidence, then so be it. I would abide by it.
Mexico City announced on Friday it will close bars and limit eateries for 2 weeks after the number of people hospitalized for COVID-19 rose to levels not seen since August. The city closed nightclubs and bars in the spring, but later allowed some to reopen. However, Mayor Claudia Sheinbaum pointed out that many establishments had not enforced sanitary and social distance measures and had become sites of very high transmission. The city of almost 9 million inhabitants has never been under a strict lockdown, but businesses, museums, parks, and shopping malls have been under capacity restrictions for months. More than 3,000 people are currently hospitalized in the capital, though clinics are still at only about half capacity. The number of COVID-19 tests conducted in the city will increase to as many as 10,000 per day, which is still far below other nations, but higher than other cities in the country. The first cruise to resume sailing in the Caribbean has now reported several possible coronavirus cases aboard. The Sea Dream Yacht Club cruise was the first to return to the Caribbean since the COVID-19 pandemic shut down operations in March. It was meant to demonstrate that increased safety protocols, including regular testing aboard the ship, could allow cruise voyages to take place during the pandemic. Instead, one passenger fell ill on Wednesday, forcing the ship to return to Barbados, where all 53 passengers and 66 crew were tested. So far, a total of 7 passengers have tested positive for COVID-19, according to 2 passengers on the ship. The Sea Dream Yacht Club said in a press release that its guests had received assumptive positive results through preliminary rapid COVID-19 tests, but did not specify the number who had done so. Passengers who test negative twice will be allowed to disembark the ship and fly home on Saturday. Tropical storm Yota, the 30th named storm of this year's Atlantic hurricane season, has formed and could follow Eta's deadly path in Central America this weekend. Hurricane experts were closely watching the Caribbean, where Tropical storm Yota formed on Friday afternoon. Forecasters warned that Yota could power up quickly to major hurricane strength as it approaches Central America late Sunday or Monday. And it could wreak more havoc in a region where people are still grappling with the aftermath of ETA. The National Hurricane Center in Miami said Yota could bring dangerous winds, storm surges, and as much as 30 inches of rainfall to northern Nicaragua and Honduras. The Dominican Republic's Emergency Operations Center has put 24 provinces on alert due to heavy rains that have displaced over 7,000 people, isolated 13 communities, and destroyed homes and infrastructure. The National Met Office reported that a tropical wave or possible hurricane would affect the occurrence of downpours, thunder, lightning, and gusts of wind in the southeast, southwest, central mountain range, and border areas of the country. Most of the country is on yellow alert for possible flash floods due to the overflow of rivers and streams, as well as landslides. Residents in vulnerable areas are recommended to adopt measures that prevent the loss of life and property damage, while being urged not to cross rivers, streams, and gullies with high volumes of water, and stay clear from areas with slopes where landslides could occur. Deforestation in Brazil's Amazon increased in October for the first time in 4 months, according to government data released on Friday. The destruction of the world's largest rainforest remains high under President Jair Bolsonaro, who has weakened environmental protection enforcement. In October, deforestation rose 50% from the previous year to 836 square kilometers, according to preliminary data from Government Space Research Agency. But monthly deforestation eased from its peak from July to September, as the rainy season began, making logging difficult. Destruction in 2020 continues to be far higher than in the years before Bolsonaro took office in January 1st, 2019. Bolsonaro has called for more farming and mining in the Amazon to lift the region out of poverty, he says, which environmental advocates says is emboldening Brazilians to cut down the forest. We have more stories coming up. Don't go away. Welcome back. Let's continue with news. U.S. Democrat Joe Biden won the states of Arizona and Georgia on Friday on the presidential race to secure a total of 306 electoral college votes against President Donald Trump's 232. This represents an exact flip of the final vote in 2016, when Trump won 306 electoral votes, while Democrat candidate Hillary Clinton won 232. Popular vote-wise, Biden won 77.5 million votes, or 50.8%, compared to the 72.3 million, representing 47.4% who voted for Trump, which is an advantage of 5 million votes. Biden's win in Arizona represents a flipping of the state to Democrat for the first time since 1996, when Bill Clinton won the state's support for his White House bid. The tight race in Arizona ended with a lead of more than 11,000 ballots for Biden, giving him the state's 11 electoral votes. Meanwhile, President Trump won North Carolina to take 15 more electoral college votes. Despite Biden's overwhelming victory, Trump continues to refuse to acknowledge his defeat. The U.S. Department of Homeland Security has described the recent presidential elections as the most secure in the history of the country. According to a statement from the Department of Homeland Security's Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, there is no evidence that any voting system deleted or lost votes, changed votes, or was in any way compromised. The statement challenges President Trump's claims of widespread electoral fraud and other voting irregularities. The nation's election agencies, along with nearly a dozen federal officials, have expressed the utmost confidence in the security and integrity of the elections. They also said that election officials are reviewing and double-checking that entire election process prior to finalizing the results are taking place. In his first public comments since November 5th, President Trump addressed the media on COVID-19 vaccine progress, while saying that his administration will not go into a lockdown. Despite high expectations, Trump acknowledged the possibility of a new administration in January, but stopped short of announcing a formal concession to President-elect Joe Biden.
This administration will not be going to a lockdown. Hopefully whatever happens in the future, who knows which administration it will be, I guess time will tell, but I can tell you this administration will not go to a lockdown.
And the post-election tension is mounting in the U.S. as Trump supporters gather in front of the White House, while the Black Lives Matter movement and Biden supporters counter the demonstration. Washington, D.C. is the epicenter of the pro- and anti-Trump mobilizations. A crowd of Trump supporters has already gathered in front of the White House prior to various rallies that have been scheduled for this weekend, including the Million MAGA March in support of the current president. Right-wing groups calling themselves March for Trump, Stop the Steal, and Women for America First are all posting on social media about a big demonstration on Freedom Plaza on Saturday at noon. But the largest Twitter page for the event only has about 10,000 followers. Biden and his supporters, groups from Black Lives Matter movement, have also announced counter-protests with fears that there could be clashes with Trump supporting extremists. China has condemned the U.S. government for abusing state power to oppress Chinese companies. Statements come after U.S. President Donald Trump banned investment in firms that he claims aid China's military.
On the basis of political motivations, the U.S. government slanders China's military-civilian integrated development policy, abusing state power to arbitrarily oppress Chinese companies. These seriously violate the principles of market competition as well as international trade rules, and severely undermines normal trade and investment cooperation between China and the U.S. This measure not only severely harms the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese companies, it also hurts the interests of international investors, including those from the U.S. China urges the U.S. to view China's military-civilian integrated development policy correctly, stop its wrong behavior of using the pretext of national security to recklessly oppress Chinese companies, and withdraw the relevant wrong decisions. We will resolutely protect the legitimate rights of Chinese companies.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry has congratulated U.S. President-elect Joe Biden and his Vice President Kamala Harris for their victory in last week's election.
We have been paying close attention to the domestic and international response to this U.S. presidential election. We respect the choice of the U.S. people. We express our congratulations to Mr. Biden and Mrs. Harris. At the same time, we understand the result of the U.S. election will be determined in accordance with U.S. laws and procedures.
Former U.S. President Barack Obama has said during an interview about his new book that being president is a temporary job and that presidents are not above the law.
Trump won. I stayed up until 2:30 in the morning, and I then called Donald Trump to congratulate him. His margin of victory over Hillary Clinton wasn't greater than Joe Biden's margin over him. But if you're listening to some of the talk radio that Trump voters are listening to, if you're watching Fox News, if you're getting these tweets, those allegations are presented as facts. So you've got millions of people out there who think, oh yeah, there must be cheating because the president said so. They obviously didn't think there was any fraud going on because they didn't say anything about it for the first 2 days. But there's damage to this because what happens is that the peaceful transfer of power, the notion that any of us who attain an elected office, whether it's dog catcher or president, are servants of the people. It's a temporary job. We're not above the rules. We're not above the law. That's the essence of our democracy.
Obama notes in the first volume of his upcoming memoir that the divisions in the U.S. run deep. The departure of Trump from the White House will not be enough to bridge the divide. In an excerpt from A Promised Land, Obama says that U.S. democracy seems to be teetering on the brink of crisis, rooted in a fundamental contest between two opposing visions of what the U.S. is and should be. The former president said that this crisis has allowed for an ongoing breach of institutional norms, procedural safeguards, and the adherence to basic facts that both Republicans and Democrats once took for granted.
That's the essence of our democracy.
We're taking one last break. Stay with us. Thank you for joining us again. The Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic has issued a statement claiming to have successfully conducted artillery attacks against military bases of the Moroccan army. The political organization of the Sahrawi People's Liberation Army announced that several enemy sites have been attacked by its fighters along the Moroccan Wall of Shame, in response to the military operation launched by Moroccan forces in violation of the ceasefire agreement signed between the two parties to the conflict. The statement added that a detachment of the Sahrawi People's Liberation Army has responded to the Moroccan aggression to protect Sahrawi civilians who were protesting for freedom and independence. The president of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic and Secretary General of the Polisario Front, Brahim Ghali, on Friday sent an urgent letter to the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres and the President of the Security Council, Ambassador Inga Ronda King. They informed them of the implications of Friday's attack by Moroccan forces on unarmed Sahrawi civilians who have been demonstrating peacefully in Guerguerat. Ethiopian refugees have entered Sudan's Gedaref state, fleeing the intense fighting in the northern Tigray region and reporting artillery bombardments and airstrikes.
Are abusing us. We came with 5 to 6 children on our backs. The children don't have anything to drink and eat. All of us are suffering. We don't have clothes of our own. What clothes we have worn were borrowed from neighbors. We want the Tigray and the government to look after us.
This is the reason why all these people have left their villages, left everyone with nothing. All these people do not even have money to buy food. The banks are closed. If I asked anyone, none of them has the price of a bread loaf because the banks have closed for a long time. Even our people in Sudan could not help us because the bank is closed and there is no phone network. The people from Tigray are tired.
Italian authorities have extended a partial lockdown as hospitals struggle to handle a surge of new admissions. The regions of Italy that include the cities of Naples and Florence have been declared coronavirus red zones. The director of the National Health Institute, Gianni Rezza, said the stricter measures were justified by a worrisome increase in hospitalizations, as Italy's rate of new confirmed cases reached 650 per 100,000 people. The Italian government is imposing varying levels of restrictions under a three-tiered color-coded system, with red as the least restrictive, orange in the middle, and yellow as the most serious top tier. Regions designated as red zones are subject to partial lockdowns, under which only grocery stores, pharmacies, newsstands, and other shops deemed necessities may remain open. Vietnam is preparing a mass evacuation as it braces for Typhoon Vamco, which killed dozens in the Philippines. As Typhoon Vamco barrels closer to the country, authorities have ordered hundreds of thousands of residents to evacuate the central coastal region. Vamco will be the third straight typhoon to hit the area. The region between Quang Binh and Quang Ngai, and the provinces, has already been hit by 2 typhoons over the past few weeks. Prior to that, it endured weeks of heavy rains, floods, and landslides, beginning October 6th, that killed hundreds and displaced thousands. Vamco is currently raging in the South China Sea with winds of 144 miles per hour, and experts predict it will make landfall in Vietnam near Da Nang on Saturday or early Sunday. The government is warning of flash floods and landslides. According to a report from the International Energy Agency the global demand for oil will not completely recover, even if a vaccine against COVID-19 is distributed worldwide. The agency noted that recovery might not be achieved until well into 2021. The forecast is based on the positive increase in crude oil prices this week, after it was reported that one of the vaccine candidates in clinical trials has proven to be 90% effective. The monthly report from the Paris-based agency notes that it is too soon to know how and when vaccines will allow people to return to their normal lives, and a significant impact is not expected within the first semester of 2021. And with that, we end this news brief. But remember, you can find all of our stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. And be sure to check us out on social media. Until next time.